The World Is Not Enough is the third Pierce Brosnan James Bond movie, and I'm very excited to give you guys my review for this movie. Be sure to check out all my reviews for the previous Bond films. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. In this movie, James Bond uncovers a nuclear plot while protecting Elektra King from her former kidnapper, an international terrorist who can't feel pain. The World Is Not Enough is a lot like Tomorrow Never Dies in that I feel a lot of fans are very divided on this movie. I know a lot of people really don't like this movie, but there's a lot of people who have it like in their top 10 of the James Bond franchise. As for me, whenever I'd watched this movie in the past, I was never a big fan of this movie. But I rewatched it to do this as review, and I'm not sure what changed, but I actually enjoyed this movie this time around, and I really appreciate some of the stuff they were doing. And some of it I could remember from before, but rewatching it again, I was like, you know what, I got more appreciation for what this movie was doing, and I did actually quite enjoy it. I do have issues with it, and I'll get to those in a bit. But for starters, one thing that I really liked about this movie is in it, Bond is a lot colder, more like Timothy Dalton or Daniel Craig's Bond. This was definitely the darkest, most serious Pierce Brosnan's Bond went, and I think it might be his best performance of his run. He was great in this movie, and there's one scene in particular that was great with the one of the villains in this, Elektra King. Her storyline in this was great, but the way those two characters, their final scene together was great. And Elektra King, I think, was maybe the best part of this movie, at least one of the best parts of this movie, with the twist with her, because you think she's a good guy, because at the start Bond is sent out to protect her from the main villain of this movie, but it turns out she's in league with the main villain. And they mention the Stockholm syndrome, where like a prisoner falls in love with the person who kidnapped them. Very dark theme, and I thought it was sort of bold for them to go that way, and it was very surprising, and I thought it really worked for me. And then getting back to that final scene with Bond and Elektra, I thought it was great because it felt very much like that cold-hearted Bond, where like she said, "No, you won't kill me," and then she's about to say something to the other villain, Renard, and he just shoots her dead mid-sentence. And I thought that was a great scene, and I thought Brosnan in that scene was great. Like I said, I do think this might be his best performance of his run as James Bond. Another aspect of the storyline with Bond and Elektra that I really liked was they definitely show in this movie that Bond has more real feelings for her rather than other Bond women where it's nothing very serious. In this one, it was definitely rushed because they're not together very long before it starts showing Bond is having feelings for her. That was definitely rushed, and I don't know if I believe it would happen that quickly, but once it does happen, I can buy into it from Pierce Brosnan's performance. And to me, that added a lot of weight with the twist, because, you know, watching this movie for the first time, I didn't see that twist coming, and even knowing it's coming, I think it works. So I thought that did add an extra layer to that storyline, even if it was a bit rushed at the start. This movie also gives Judi Dench's M the most to do out of the Pierce Brosnan era, and Judi Dench, I think, is really great in it. I've always enjoyed her as M. She's great in this movie. Her dynamic with Elektra is really good too. You buy into why Elektra's wanting revenge on her. It all made sense. It worked. I thought that aspect of the movie was also really good. Unfortunately, some of the other parts of the movie that hold this movie down a little bit for me is the other villain, Renard. I think the performance of that villain is pretty good, but the villain itself is very forgettable. He's just there. He's serviceable for the movie, but you don't really remember much about him other than there's a bullet in his head that's slowly moving further in, slowly killing him. He cannot feel pain, which makes him stronger, as they said in this movie, and that part I thought was a little too ridiculous for me for this movie. Didn't buy into that. And just a villain, he's just like, oh, he's just got this plot with the nuclear bomb, that's it. He was disposable, serviceable for the movie, but kind of forgettable. So that was a weak point. Other parts of the script were iffy. There were moments where I was like, okay, the dialogue's not great in this scene. There were some scenes where like, okay, it's good. Other scenes are some just single lines. The dialogue just wasn't great, unfortunately, which was kind of distracting. There was one bad performance in this movie, Denise Richards as sort of the main Bond woman in this, Christmas Jones. Yeah, her performance wasn't great, so she was another weak point of this movie. The action in this was fine. It works for the movie. While watching it, the action keeps me entertained, but it's not the highest quality action from this franchise. There's nothing other than maybe the opening scene with that boat chase. There's no real action sequence in this that I think is going to be particularly memorable. I didn't think any of them, other than the final fight, were particularly bad. They were fine. They were good for the movie. Just for this franchise that has some excellent action set pieces, they were nothing memorable. The final set piece when they're in the submarine, yeah, that scene wasn't great because they're in a very small confined area and there's bars going across between Bond and the villain, and they have to maneuver around it and fight around those bars, and even the camera angles were awkward because they sort of be getting around these bars. That wasn't great, unfortunately. So overall for me, this is not a great Bond movie. There's enough issues I have with it to hold it down from being that. But I do really respect what this movie was doing, and rewatching it, I enjoyed it a lot more than I ever had. And yeah, I had quite a bit of fun with it. I think this is a Bond film that's fun to watch. It's not going to be one for me that's going to be particularly memorable afterwards, but I think I'll have a fun time watching it. Like I said, I respect what they were doing with it. I loved the twist in it. I think it was one of the best twists in the franchise. Did not see it coming initially. And it works very well. That part of the movie works very well. And Pierce Brosnan was great in this movie. And I like that they went for the more cold-hearted Bond in this movie. So all of that really helped this movie for me, where I was like, you know what, I quite enjoy it. I think I liked it just a bit more than Tomorrow Never Dies, because this one I felt like was trying to do more unique things in the franchise. At least that's how I felt, and for the most part it worked. There were just some things with the script, action, villain, one performance that held it down for me, but overall I do like this movie now. So for me, I would give The World Is Not Enough a 73%. So guys, if you have seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it. If you're someone who thinks it's very underrated, let me know. If you feel that way, if you don't like it, let me know, and let me know your reasons. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and be sure to stay tuned for more reviews coming soon. And until my next video, take care everybody.